If you think I look a little bit like a waiter in today's episode, then it's true. I am wearing a black waistcoat that I used to years ago when I was an entertainer, wear as a waiter, as a comedy waiter, a spoof waiter, not a real waiter in corporate entertainment situations. Had a lot of fun with that. But I'm running out of black items of clothing. I've never been somebody to have a wardrobe full of black items of clothing. But in these days of national mourning, and I know not everybody is mourning in any way, and they're showing their respect for the Queen or not in their own individual way, I do want to show some element. And I think as a broadcaster, in my very tiny little insignificant way here on the internet, in my little corner of YouTube, I do want to show some respect. And I'm afraid I am now a waiter today. And also, not only that, I've lost weight since the sort of 10 years ago when I used to wear it, so it is a bit baggy. I thought I'd get that out of the way because I know otherwise some wag out there will make the comment, "Oh, Richard, you look like a bit of a waiter today." And if I've said it, then it doesn't really matter, and you can poke as much fun as you like out of me, as I'm sure you do. I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. The brain was buzzing with ideas, and I was lying in bed there, and I just could not sleep. And I thought, blimey, what am I going to do? I got up, and I made myself a cup of tea, and I sat down, and I did a bit of a brainstorm. I got rid of everything. A brain drain. Is it a brain something or other where you take stuff out of your head and you shove it down on a bit of paper? I also wrote up my journal, my diary, which is a sort of longhand journal of what the things I get up to. I've been keeping this for many years now. I've actually lapsed recently, although suddenly was kick-started to make an entry in there after Her Majesty the Queen had sadly died. I thought it was worth putting in that. I don't know who's going to look at that in maybe in years to come, my children when I'm dead and buried, maybe in my dementia-ridden state in some care home at some point in the future. Somebody may read it. Do you remember when you wrote this? You've got this in your diary. All of that. I don't know. But I couldn't sleep. And after having done that and spent about half an hour, 40 minutes down in the middle of the night, down in my front room, sitting on the sofa, enjoying a cup of tea, I then went back to bed, and I actually did fall asleep quite promptly, which was very nice, and I'm very pleased. Do you suffer from insomnia? Do you suffer with sometimes being unable to get to sleep? Do you find that sometimes it's difficult? And what do you do? Do you just lie there? Do you turn on the light and read a book? Or do you just toss and turn and just can't sleep? Do you get up? The advice, I think, is, if you can't sleep, is to get up and go into a different room and do something, whether that is reading or watching the telly or watching a YouTube video or something else in a different room, so that when you go back to your bedroom is associated in your brain with a room that you sleep in, not a room that you do other things in, which might be reasons why sometimes people can't sleep, because people often do sit in bed. They might watch the television and do lots of other bits and pieces, who knows? And so the brain has an association that this room is a multi, it's almost like another sitting room or front room or what do you call it? Sitting room, front room, lounge, all those sort of different terms that you have for the main room in the house where you either entertain or whatever that you do, or where the television is, or where the sofas are, or whatever. I don't have a television in my front room, so that doesn't bother me at all. But they do say that if you do too much in the bedroom, then you lose the fact mentally that it is a room for sleeping in, so that you get out of bed and you go and do something else. But of course, there are people out there who really struggle to get to sleep and have all sorts of different strategies or stratagems, is it, to get to sleep. And I'd be interested in what they are. How do you manage it? What do you do? I'm not a great person for staying up terribly late. I prefer to get up early. I hate it if I've not had a good 7 to 8 hours sleep. I do like that. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, Richard, you're so busy with your bits and bobs. Do you ever sleep?" And of course I do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to be busy. Sleep is an incredibly important thing. But some people, either through whatever health reasons or mental reasons or whatever it is, don't seem to be able to. I know that there was a report saying that actually if you don't get enough sleep, that it can contribute to later life dementia. And I think that's quite true with people like Margaret Thatcher, who was purported to only have 4 hours sleep and then got on with a whole load of stuff. And in her later life, of course, she did suffer from dementia, which was no good. The other question is, if you don't sleep, do you take naps in the day? Some people say that having a nap in the day is good, and other people saying that it isn't good. So I'd be interested in your opinion on that, whether having a nap, I mean, if you don't get enough sleep, I've heard it say that you can, people say, oh, well, I'll just have a nap and I'll catch up. But then I've heard so-called experts on the radio or on interviews on various places saying you never actually catch up with sleep. It's not something you can catch up because your opportunity to sleep has gone. You're just having additional sleep, which might be semantics, I suppose, at the end of the day. And it might be what people mean when they say they catch up. They just feel that they need the sleep. But apparently it isn't that you're catching up, that actually if you just don't get enough sleep in your life, it can affect your longevity and your health, because going to sleep and having sleep and letting the body repose and go off and do its rehabilitating stuff, where it's all the processes are healing you and healing those things that have happened to you throughout the day, and the brain is getting rid of all those worries and moans and groans and complicated things in your life that you've involved, and that might happen through deep sleep and dreams in which you're unaware a lot of the time of what you have dreamt, although when you're dreaming them they seem incredibly vivid. That if you're not getting that block of time to go through this, it can actually affect your health and your longevity and of course your moods. And I think that's very true. If you're tired and then you're challenged with a task that is difficult, your mood is very much changed. Do you find that? Do you find that your moods, you personally, you watching this, that if your sleep is interrupted or you're unable to do it, that you find your moods change? Or are you just somebody who says, do you know what, I never have any problems going to sleep whatsoever. I manage to get to sleep. I go to sleep at, say, 10 o'clock at night. I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I have no problem most of the time. And generally, that would describe me. It is rare that I wake up in the middle of the night. Now, I have a relationship with the lovely Julia, and she does spend the night over here. She is much more generally a nighttime person. She would stay up late and get up late. I am a go to bed early and get up early type of person, which means that the pair of us are sort of having to adapt when you're in a relationship, having to adapt what the other person's normal preferences are when you're going to bed. And so we don't at this moment, because we're quite early in our relationship and trying to sort of work out what each other, how each other moves, and you know how the relationship is going to go, and you're trying to please the other partner as much as possible. We tend to go to bed at the same time, and often that means I stay up later than I would ordinarily want, because Julia may not be wanting to go to sleep at that time. She may be still awake, and if we're lying in bed and she's sort of not able to get to sleep, then I feel bad. So that's interesting dynamic as well. Are you somebody who is aware, of your partner? And do you try and sort of fit in with your partner, particularly in a relationship? Are you able, in the middle of the night, for example, to get up without waking your partner and go into another room and do something? Or does your partner come down and say, oh, darling, are you okay? Or have they just slept through and not really batted an eyelid, and you managed to creep back in bed and nobody knows whatsoever? You could have gone out and, robbed a bank for all they know, or anything ridiculously stupid like that, and you've come back and they'll swear blind that you were actually in bed, my lord. You never left the house. Are you somebody like that? Do you sleep so incredibly heavy that you just don't notice? I'd be fascinated to know if that is you. As I say, it's very rare for me to do that. But I am twitchy. Even if I go to bed late, I'm twitchy if I can't get up early. I am a morning person, and I love to get up, especially in the summer. I'm pretty rubbish in the summer for sleeping. Not for sleeping per se. It's just that I'll go to bed because I'm more in tune, I think, with the sun. So if the sun is up late, I'll go to bed late because I don't want to miss the last rays of sunshine. Although the sun, the latest is usually about 10 o'clock. But then if it's 5 o'clock in the morning that the sun's coming up, I'm generally waking up and wanting to get up. If the sun's up, I want to be up. In the winter, of course, the sun goes to sleep, as it were, metaphorically, much, much earlier. It doesn't mean that I will go to, if it starts getting dark around 5 o'clock, it doesn't mean to say that I will go to bed at 5 o'clock. But I will start to want to go to bed earlier in those cold winter days. Mainly, of course, is because I don't need to heat the whole of the house and it's nice and warm in the bedroom. So I might go to bed and read for a bit and then nod off. But I might be more inclined to stay in bed the following day because it's colder in the house. I don't have central heating. So I'm in no great rush, unless, of course, I've got things to do, which generally I have, to get up. And so particularly, say, on a weekend or a day when I know I've got nothing and there's no great real cause to get up early, I will take it more easy. So, but I'm interested in what you will do. How do you cope with sleep or lack of sleep? Now, how do you cope in the day if you are then feeling very tired? Do you have a nap, or do you just plough on through and then say, do you know what, I'm going to go to bed early tonight and come hell or high water, that's what I'll do? Let me know in the comments. Be interested to know that. Let's have a look at comments then from yesterday's video. And I have a complaint. I want to complain. Are you a complainer? Do you complain? Let's find out. Joe Gaming Girly says, I will complain if I really need to. I don't think I've been anywhere where I need to complain. It's all been good, I guess. Maybe I'm just lucky, she says. Sad about the Queen. I didn't do much. I lit a candle and had a little silence. I've seen people celebrating her death. Absolutely disgusting. So wrong. It is because they're rich, and there seems to be quite a lot of people that hate. Oh, it's because the Queen and the family is rich, I suppose is what you're saying. And there seems to be a lot of people who hate the rich. I think the people are struggling, but I still think that's horrible to celebrate somebody's death. I don't think I will ever understand how people can be so heartless. And I agree with you there. It's a very strange thing. I'd like to know, maybe somebody can ask this is just by the way, the coffin is being moved at the moment, and people are clapping the coffin. This seems to be a very strange and new thing. I don't really understand that. Why would you clap a coffin? It's what are you signalling? You're celebrating their life by clapping, or are you clapping the fact that they're deceased? I'd be interested in what you think about that. Darren Snosrap, is that how it's pronounced? Snosrap says, thank you, Richard, for voicing an opinion. It's my pleasure to do that. Zan, perhaps you could tell me how you pronounce your name. Zanny BC. Is it Zanny BC? Is that how it is? I'm not quite sure. He says, by the way, I thought, now I don't know if there's another comment because I'm reading these on the fly. He says, I thought that someone who wants to capture the English way of life, who complains that Englishness is disappearing, would be up on the procedure of the change of the monarch. But my mistake. Well, it is your mistake, I suppose. Furthermore, I have put a link. Furthermore, I would have put a link in if I could, but due to my own disability, was unable to. Well, I'm sorry that you are disabled enough to unable, shall we say, to be able to put in the link to wherever it was. But yes, if you've made a mistake, then there's nothing I can do about that. Steam Searcher says, I have found a wonderful way of complaining about bad roads around Reading. Drive slowly and go round the holes in an exaggerated manner. Yes, well, that's one way of doing it, although actually, are you not putting everybody else into a very slow, at least I suppose you're protecting other people from ruining their vehicles or their bicycles by travelling slowly around potholes if nobody has done it. I think it might be more sensible to actually tell the council because they may not be aware of them, or maybe they're aware of them and doing nothing about it. But it is a form of complaint, and I applaud that. Stephanie Evans says, subjects is the word you were searching for. Yes, I was trying to say yesterday, subjects. We're not citizens of this country in England. We are the subjects of the Queen. I totally agree about showing respect, but many young people, says Stephanie especially, don't care about royalty or have any concept of somebody who served the country for 70 years. And I suppose in some ways you can't blame them, because it's something that's always been there. And the trouble with the youth, this is something I think you can't blame the youth particularly. It's not because they are, well, it is sort of because you're young and you're born into something. This is just an opinion, by the way. And it comes with maturity. As you mature, you think about things more because you've had a lot more life experience. I'm not saying that young people don't think or can't be mature. I'm not saying that. But I think if you've had something that is always there, we very often, I think it's a human trait, is we take it for granted. So the Queen has always been there for young people because they're not over 70. And she's always been there. She's always done that. And you may just think, well, I've got no notion of what she does, or I have no, she's just the Queen. She's a figurehead. She's on the money and she's on the postage stamps and various other things, on the passport and things like that. Her name is represented on post boxes and the royal crest. But I don't really get it, because in my immediate life, I'm so busy struggling with the process of living that she is just a sort of a mythological character in many ways. And I absolutely understand that. Of course, that does seem to be very much the case. And I can be much more, I can find that I can excuse the behaviour of young people, particularly in this modern day and age, because it's down to the parents or the generation before to uphold respect. But I think this the business of respect and understanding what people are going through has been on a long slippery slope. It hasn't just happened like this so that we just blame the youth. It's not their fault. I think that it's been a long slippery slope that we've all adjusted, and many people just sort of go, well, I just take it for granted. I know what it's like when you I used to live in a little town called Petworth, lovely little town. And there's this beautiful house called Petworth House. The Lord Egremonts used to live there. And there was a benevolent lord, the third Lord of Egremont, who used to live there, which is by the way. But he was interested in supporting people like Turner, the artist, and inside there's some Turner paintings and things. And I think Capability Brown modelled the gardens in there originally. And it's a very lovely place, and it's got some deer in there, which are relatively, I think, quite ancient deer in the deer park. And they're all... Anyway, it's a big house, country house, big estate, very rich and all the rest of it. But, and it's open to the public. And so you can go in and have a look. You can wander around the park, you can go to the house and look at these amazing things. Of course, not everybody will necessarily agree with it. Of course, in this day and age where anybody who's got any money or is associated in any shape or form with land owning or things, as I think Joe Gamely was saying, that people, just hate them for no apparent reason, just because they've got a lot of money, that might be hereditary for historic reasons. But let's not go into that. My point really was quite simply that it was on my doorstep, and I was living there when I was 18, and I lived there for 2 years in Petworth, and I never once went to the house, because it was a place that I could go to anytime I liked. I would go to many other places, but Petworth House never went to, because it was one of those things it's just there, and I took it for granted. And I think we do take certain things for granted, and you think, what's all the fuss about? And I get that's probably what's going on with that situation, as Stephanie has mentioned. I don't think you can blame the youth per se. And also there's been, in recent times, a lot of negative press against the monarchy, and perhaps we haven't been instilling in the youth respect for a whole load of things, for the police. Mind you, the police haven't really earned a lot of respect in recent times, not actually solving crimes. So that is another thing that you could be arguing about. Peter Abraham says, I've never been one to complain often, although there are times when one has to stand up and be counted when being on the receiving end of very poor service that's unacceptable. I've always make sure that I'm polite and courteous when doing so, as we all make mistakes and have an off day. Exactly. I mean, this is the thing. Sometimes we complain and it is just somebody's having an emotional breakdown, or they've been told off, or they're just not in the mood. And we can, if we look at ourselves in the mirror with honest eyes, we can say, yeah, we all have those days. I mean, I'll have those days where I'll say something on this which I may regret afterwards and say, I think I was a bit too far on that, or I didn't give a very good performance, or I was a bit lackluster, or I just wasn't in the mood, and things like that. We all have those days, of course. And so someone will complain, someone might complain about a video I've put up, and they may say something along the lines of, oh, you said something in that video that's really upset me. And I may go back and think about it and go, actually, do you know what? Yes, I can see your point. It wasn't deliberate. It was an off day, and these things happen. I misinterpreted somebody's comment the other day on here. I answered it honestly, but I had misinterpreted what they were saying, and then they thought I was attacking them, which I wasn't, and it wasn't meant as an attack. It's just that I misinterpreted. And so sometimes when you complain, and if you give the person who you're complaining to the chance to answer back the complaint and say, well, do you know what? Like when I went into the Italian restaurant, they gave me a cold plate with the meal. It may be they said, well, yes, I'm really sorry, but actually they'd just been washed up, or they'd been on the side. We run out of plates and they were the only ones, and we're really sorry. We were so rushed. We forgot to warm the plate a bit, and it was just a bit too cold, and we apologize. That could have been, instead of, if the waitress had simply just explained that to me, I said, no, it's not a problem. I'm just giving you the feedback. But no, she went and thought that what I was actually saying was, I don't want to pay for the meal. And so she did it, and then she slapped this thing down and went, happy now? Which was not the response I was actually looking for. Paul Cockrell says, I went back to Morrison's today, and they've changed the piece of paper with the statement on it to a picture of the Queen, so your complaint must have been acted on. So, well, I'm impressed by that. Tony Norman says, I'm assuming you heat your own plates when you're cooking in the van then, which is a very strange thing. I'm talking about going into a restaurant in which the food is served, and it's served on very cold plates, and so the food is, particularly with things like spaghetti, which and pasta, which gets cold very quickly. I don't know if you've ever cooked pasta or spaghetti, but placed on a cold plate, the heat goes straight out of the pasta. And so if you're serving that and you're expecting someone to purchase it for hard-earned cash, Tony, I think that if it comes out cold and you're expecting it to be hot, you are able to complain. So I don't really understand how you get from that to, I'm assuming you heat your plates when you're cooking in the van. If I happen to have a cold plate, actually the plates in the van are plastic, so they never get really cold in the way that China plates do, but that's immaterial. I think if I'm preparing a food, even at home, and it happens to be on cold plates because I've got nothing else, I've only got myself to blame, and I go, oh, damn, the pasta has gone cold. It doesn't really, I can't see you have an argument there, but if you want to elaborate on it, of course you can, and explain what you mean. But there you go. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much. I'd be interested to know how you manage to get to sleep. Do you get to sleep? What do you do to combat that? Are there little tricks? Do you put yourself into a sort of meditative state? Do you turn over, or do you put your head down the other side of the bed? Do you change the bed covers? Do you go downstairs? Do you read a book? What do you do? Do you have a nice cup of hot cocoa, or do you take any sort of medication, a sleeping draft, and all of that? Be interested to know your thoughts on that. And thank you very much for listening today. Take care, and talk to you soon.